This is the morning of the third day, but I'm going to tell you about like the things that we did yesterday. So the hotels and the food on this trip has been actually really, really nice. The communication on the trip has been a little tough. We actually they didn't give us an actual tour guide. The guy that has been with us since the beginning was like the first beekeeper who like taught us about beekeeping in Bergen, and he just kind of ended up having to stay with us because the tour group kind of asked him to do that. So he was our guide into all of yesterday, and then he got on a bus and left yesterday. So yesterday we finished up in the hotel, finished up breakfast, and the food has been like really, really great. Like breakfast yesterday, there was, I think it was like 5 different types of eggs. They had like a sous vide with soft boiled eggs, and they had over easy eggs and scrambled eggs, and I can't remember what these other, anyways, just a full spread of breakfast. It was great. So we left the hotel, and then we got on this bus. It's like that big like coach bus back there. I've never been on a tour before where we had like this, where you kind of like are kind of a herd of people. I've never done that before, but it's worked out just fine. Staying in a hotel, different hotel every night, it wears on you a little bit. So we got on the bus and we went to this museum. It was like a kids museum. We drove for a couple hours, and I say it's a kids museum. It's one of those interactive museums, science museums. And the idea behind that was we were gonna go and learn about this brown bee or black bee or dark bee. That means all the same thing. So we get to this museum and we're just kind of walking around and looking at all these. They have these different ways like log cabins were made and the different joints, and that was kind of cool to see how they put together buildings without screws and bolts and things like that. So we got to see all that, and they had these kind of interactive things. They had an observation hive in there. It was only 2 frames. They had 2 frames of these bees with a little tube that goes outside. It's all about 55, 60 degrees here a lot. So those bees were flying, not very much, but they were flying. And they were those Norwegian black bees or brown bees that they're trying to protect. So they had a really kind of a cool little pollen microscope where you could see the individual pollen grains, and they had a display of all these different grains, all these different pollen collections that they've done. They had pollen for 1 week, pollen from the next week, so you could see like how the pollen collection changes in the hive, just like we do in the US. So we looked at that, and then we went down into this into their like kind of basement, and then they had like a bedroom. They had like this little classroom with these really hard seats. So we sat in there and listened to this presentation, and this was the guy that presented. He was kind of one of those presenters that gives you tons and tons of details. I really wanted to know more about like the black bee, how many beekeepers have it, how they protect it, what's different. It's Apis mellifera. It's like the original honeybee that was in Germany and most of Europe. And I learned that it was pretty much decimated. So I think in like the 50s or 50s, 60s, they did not want that bee anymore. So they, especially the Germans, they did this campaign basically to get rid of it because they wanted to have the Italians, they wanted to have Carnolians. They wanted those for the same reason we like those, that they produce a lot of honey and they were gentle. So they were like, we need these are better bees. We need Italian bees. So they basically went around destroying all these German black bees or these brown bees, all the same thing. The Apis mellifera. So they went around and destroyed those because the mellifera was much more defensive. It didn't make a lot of honey, and it was just deemed an inferior bee compared to these new ones that were kind of coming out. So they kind of destroyed a bunch of them, and then they kind of realized that like, hey, actually we like these bees. We like these dark bees. So that's when this guy that was doing this presentation came in. So he worked with some other people, and then they realized that they had pretty much destroyed all of these black bees except for some that were in Norway and some that were in Ireland. So that's where kind of Norway came into play. They kind of set up this perimeter, and they protected these dark bees so that you can't bring any other types of bees into it. And the way that they, from what I understand, they protect these types of bees is they set up like basically a perimeter of hives around the area of these dark bees, and they just flood the area with drones basically. So they have this like biological fence of dark bee drones that try to keep the other bees out, but they're kind of struggling with it a bit because there are beekeepers all over the place, and they want Italians, and they want Carnolians, and they want those other bees that everybody has, and that's what the internet says to get. So they are trying to protect this species of bee. So the things that are good about it is that they're really good at surviving the winter. So they don't eat a lot. They don't brood up unless there's nectar coming in. They fly when it's raining. They fly when it's cold. So those are things that make it a great bee for this area, but they're not huge like honey producers. So kind of interesting. Nice to learn about these different types of bees that are out there and what people are doing to protect them. So walked around this museum a little bit more, did some of these activities that were kind of like, you know, fun, interactive things, had lunch, got back on the bus. And then we had to get to the shore, or had to get to the coast, basically. We had to get off the bus and get onto another ferry. And this ferry was one of these like big boats, like it's like a little mini cruise ship basically. And we got onto this, and then we went to Denmark. So we're in Denmark now, but unfortunately, like 3 people, we got to the ferry and 3 people realized that their bags got left at the hotel. So they had to scramble to get back, and that was 4 hours away. So they ended up showing up this morning. They figured it all out. They got on a different ferry and slept on the ferry overnight. And they managed to get their bags and get caught up with us. Anyway, so we walked around this ferry, sat on the ferry, and talked to some people and just kind of chilled out. It was a long ferry ride. And then we got onto a bus. Unfortunately, remember, we don't have a guide at this point. Like we were just kind of left with a, hey, somebody's going to pick you up, which is not great if you're a tour guide company. So we were just left with that information. And we made like a little WhatsApp group to communicate with everybody in the group, and so that nobody got left. So we got here. Unfortunately, there was a guy named Lars, and he's another beekeeper. So he picked us up with a bus driver, and then we came to this hotel right here. So we are in Denmark now, in this little kind of quaint hotel. So breakfast, our dinner last night was like fantastic. It was the food. It was been really great. It was like chicken and like this mushroom sauce, and I'm pretty sure the mushroom sauce was only cream, mushrooms, butter, and salt. Like that's what I expect when I'm in Denmark, and I'm eating like a cream sauce. So I love that. And little roasted French potatoes, and let's see, great dessert, good conversation. So a lot of these people who were here at Apimondia were also at Chile last year. So we were just like swapping, or 2 years ago. So we were like swapping stories about getting robbed in Chile. Fortunately, we did not get robbed, but we know a lot of people who did get robbed. And apparently a lot of people were scammed one way or another while they were down there. Some of them were just straight out mugged. Some people were just got their credit cards driven away with. And anyways, we had a good time just kind of talking about the experiences of going to Santiago, Chile, and being down there. So today we got actually a fun day. We're actually going to go see some bees today with a beekeeper. So I'm looking forward to that. And the sun is actually out. It's been raining off and on for probably the last like 3 days, and we're kind of tired of it. So no rain jackets today, and we actually get to see bees today. So thank you for watching, and we will do this again tomorrow, and I'll show you a little bit more about what we're doing in Denmark. Thanks.